Good morning, or good afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. And let me know where you're from. Let's hear it in the comments. But wanted to get started here, and I'm going to start with talking about mindset for not only just weight loss, but kind of just fitness as a whole. Some tips that I think could be helpful. And as I get started here, if you can hear me, please let me know, just so I know everything's working okay. Make sure the video is okay, and make sure the audio is okay, and just so I'm not doing this all for no good reason whatsoever. It's just been happening in the past, but I think I've got this nailed down now. And since we know someone's from New Jersey, then obviously it's working. So good morning, Montreal. All right. Okay, so let's get into mindset. So part of the reason why I'm talking about this is because I have just started my cut about a week ago, a little over a week and a half ago. I started my own personal cut, and I wanted to kind of talk about some of the strategies I take and the mindset I going into things. And I thought that might be helpful. Obviously, the way I look at things isn't going to be the best for everybody, but I wanted to kind of give you some of my insight, and then just some things that I find to be helpful for people in general. And once I'm done with the mindset stuff, we will jump into the live Q&A. If you have any questions that you want me to cover after I'm done talking about this, then just drop them in the comments right now, and I will get back to it. I promise I won't miss it. So don't worry about it getting lost in the shuffle. I'm not big enough for you to have to worry about that at this point. So anyways, one of the things for me when I'm going into a cut is I really like to go into it as in a way of like, okay, it's time to like, let's get after this, let's get in and let's get out as fast as possible. I think one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with as a whole is always focusing on the opposite of whatever they're trying to accomplish. And what I mean by that is, okay, let's say you're in a reverse diet and it's not time to cut, but you want to lose weight, but it's just your body's not in a position to do so right now. So what you should be focusing on during that time is all the really positive things that come from a reverse. Things like being able to enjoy more food, have less hunger, have more energy, sleep better, recover better, perform better, get stronger, build muscle, increase metabolism. Like, there's a lot of really good things that come from a reverse diet. But what ends up happening is we just focus so much on, oh, I just want to lose weight, I want to lose weight, I want to lose weight. And you don't really even enjoy the good things that come with the reverse. And then what ends up happening, you go into a cut eventually, the thing that you've been wanting forever, and then as soon as you go into a cutting phase, now, oh, grass is greener again. Now, instead of enjoying the progress that you're making and seeing improvements in body composition and losing body fat, now it's, oh, I wish I could have more food, I'm hungry, I'm tired, you know, this is hard. You know, we need to focus on whatever the positives are in whatever phase we're doing, because otherwise it just makes it, you're just never going to be happy, and there's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. I heard that quote once and it kind of like blew my mind. I thought it was just so fantastic, because it's true. Like, if you hate everything you're doing, that's why I preach sustainability all the time, because if you hate what you're doing every second of the way, look, how is that going to end well? You know, you might force yourself into results for a while, but it's just not going to last. So anyways, for me, when I'm in a cutting phase, am I looking to be perfect? No. But at the same time, I don't want to have a lot of ups and downs and delay results more than is necessary, because the sooner I can get done, the sooner I know that I'm going to be able to get back into a position of enjoying more food and having more balance and flexibility and stuff. So it's like, let's get in, let's hit this and get out as soon as possible, rather than let it drag on. And the problem with really letting it drag on for a long time is you're on low calories for a while, but then when you have a lot of ups and downs, maybe you're having some binging or just kind of having a hard time sticking to the plan, what ends up happening is your body still starts to adapt down to those lower calories that you're occasionally hitting, but now you're not really seeing the fat loss that you should be seeing or could be seeing. And what ends up happening is, as your body continues to adapt, it gets harder and harder and harder. Now your cut's going to last that much longer. You're going to have to get that much more aggressive. You're going to have to lower your calories that much more. You're going to have to do that much more activity, and it's going to make it way more difficult than it needs to be and longer than it needs to be. So what I do is go, okay, like, let's hit this, let's get after it, and let's not focus on all the things that I'm missing out on right now. That doesn't mean that I can't enjoy anything. Like, I still go out to eat when I cut. You know, my wife and I still go out once or twice on the weekend and go out to eat, and I use my high days for that. And while I can't have anything and everything I want, I can still be reasonable with the higher calories, and you know, you make some sacrifices, but it doesn't mean you can't ever have anything fun. But the point is, like, really do your best to just stay on that plan, and then you can get out faster. And I think one of the mistakes that a lot of people make is we look at the situation that we're in as a permanent thing instead of temporary, which it's not permanent. Like your cutting phase, it will end. Always remember that. Like it's a temporary situation. The time for more food will come. The time for more balance and flexibility will come. But it's going to become that much longer if you just have a really hard time sticking to the plan. So go all in, you know, go all in without going all or nothing. My buddy Ryan made that quote once from Total Transformation, and I really thought that was a great quote, because it's like there is a difference between being all in on what you're trying to do and falling into all or nothing. Like that's definitely not what you want to do. So, you know, I think a lot of people look at getting results. They don't look at the mindset side of things, and that's why I want to talk about it right now, because it's in my opinion arguably more important than the physical what to do. Like you can do a lot of things wrong and see fantastic results. You know, everyone wants to know, okay, what exact foods should I eat, and how much exercise should I do, and all these things about the physical side of things. But it's like there's thousands of ways to do this stuff, and you can do things that a lot of people would say is stupid but get fantastic results if you just keep going and stop giving up and keep putting in the work. Like there's a lot of different ways to do it, but if you keep giving up because it's unsustainable, or you're mentally beating yourself up all the time and you're just always struggling, you're not going to get anywhere. So the mind is just as important, and it's something we can't overlook, and it's why you don't want to just do something that you hate just to try to get a result, because if you can't stick with it, you know, how's that going to go? So you know, you really just want to focus on, instead of the result, focus on the process itself. You know, getting too wrapped up in the result, which obviously we all want results. I mean, you wouldn't be doing it if you didn't want results. But the problem is, results are going to slow and stop sometimes. It's just going to happen. Like there's no way around it. It's just not going to keep going forever and ever and ever. And if you get too caught up in the results that you're getting, eventually it's going to feel like it's not worth the effort. I can promise you that. Like if you're going into a cut phase, I promise you there will be times where it feels like it's not worth the effort. But then again, if you fall into that all or nothing mentality, or have a lot of ups and downs, you're really making it hard on yourself. Make sure you're following the process. That's number one. If you're following the process and following the plan well, and then things aren't working, now you can make adjustments. Now you know how things are going, you know what types of adjustments to make, and then you can get things going again. But if you aren't sticking to the plan, then it's really hard to know what types of adjustments to make. And you can control what you're doing, but you can't control the results that you get from what you are doing, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. And you know, there's never any promises, but you know, I think people, the two things that people focus on the most during a cut are the things that are, quite honestly, the least important. One being the speed of which you get your results, and the other being the number on the scale. And that doesn't mean that we don't pay any attention to speed or a number on the scale, but we don't want to put so much emphasis on it, especially the speed side of thing. It's like, you've got to do this stuff the rest of your life. Like there's no being done. Like you don't have to be super aggressive, low calorie, high cardio all the time. You definitely shouldn't be, but you still have to continue to work out. You still have to, you know, monitor your nutrition in some sort of way, not necessarily track, but, you know, just make sure you're eating a balanced diet and stuff like that. And it's always going to take effort. So if you've got to do this stuff the rest of your life, then why does it have to happen so fast? Like I understand wanting faster results, but the speed of which we try to get results is often the thing that keeps us stuck and makes it so difficult to keep going. We get so down about the lack of speed that it makes it hard to stick to the plan, and it makes it even worse. So you don't want to focus too much on result and a number on the scale. As you think about the number on the scale, it's really the least important thing, but it's something we put so much pressure on. I mean, like if you had the body of your dreams, would you care if it was 20 pounds heavier than the number that you thought you should be at? You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't matter. Obviously, if you're losing fat, the number's going to go down over time, but at the end of the day, it's not really the number that you care about. It's the look, right? It's the health and all that type of stuff. So let me see. Had a couple notes here. Is there anything else I want to talk about with the mindset stuff? Yes. Emotions. Emotions are the thing that just derail so many of us, and it's hard to control your emotions. You know, like I always say, you can't necessarily control the emotion. You can't control the way you feel. I mean, your feelings are real, and the way we know they're real is because you're feeling them, right? But most of our feelings are triggered by thoughts, and most of our thoughts aren't true. Like, we think about ourselves in ways that most people would never think about anybody else, in a negative way. And one of the things I like to say is that tiny voice in your head that always tries to derail us, when we listen to that tiny voice, like, if you just did the opposite of whatever that little voice was telling you, you're gonna kill it, right? Because it's there to sabotage you. It's not your friend. It's doing everything it can to work against you. So you need to, again, focus on the process over emotions. You want to set up the habits and rituals and the processes that will get you where you want to be, and then make sure you're following that regardless of what your emotions are telling you. Your emotions are going to be a challenge, and that's one of the great things about having a coach, honestly, is just to have that objectivity from somebody else who's not in their own head. And I know myself, like, that's why I recently hired somebody new to do my training. Like, I just was tired of not following through the way I should, and you know, kind of getting in my own head about training, and just, it wasn't very good. Like, I'm pretty good about being objective with my own nutrition, but I've never been with training. So I tried it for a while. It wasn't working out. I got a coach. Do I know how to train? Do I know how to program? Absolutely. But that head, it's hard to get out of your own head. So you really want to just make sure that you're not getting too emotional about things, and if you are, check it, question those thoughts that you're having. Make sure you're accepting reality for what it is. This is a big thing for a lot of people. There's always going to be circumstances and obstacles that are going to make the process more difficult, whether that be your job, you know, family struggles, whatever else. Things are going to come up that are going to make it more difficult. It doesn't mean it can't be done. It's going to make it more difficult. And if you don't accept what those realities are, it's going to end up becoming your reason why you can't do it, you know, your reason, versus just an obstacle that you have to work around. You know what I mean? So it's just so important. Like, if you think about the history of time, has reality ever not won? No, of course. Like, if there's something about your job that you can't change and it's going to make it a challenge, like working longer hours or whatever, well, okay, is it a temporary situation where, okay, you maybe need to take a week or two and back off? Or is it just, this is just what your job is? If it's just what your job is, then you got to go, okay, how can I work with this and not let it be your reason why you can't? You know what I mean? So anyways, that's my spiel about weight loss, a mindset, fitness mindset as a whole. Let's go ahead and get into some Q&A. So I got a lot of comments here. Let me bring up my live screen. All right. Good morning, good morning, good morning. All right, first question, how to lift heavy while on a, I'm assuming, cut. I guess I'm not, maybe you can give me a little more context. It's really no different than not on a cut, other than eventually you might see some performance decreases. I find it doesn't usually happen until later on in the cut, especially if you start getting pretty lean, calories start getting pretty low, and it's been a longer time, then you might start seeing some. But also keep in mind there's a difference between relative strength and absolute strength. So absolute strength is like the amount of weight that you can move on a bar. So let's just say you're doing back squats and you can squat 200 pounds, and then you lose 20 pounds and you're still squatting 200 pounds. Your absolute strength is the same, but your relative strength has gone way up because now you weigh less, but you're still lifting the same amount of weight. That's why there's things like weight classes and like powerlifting, and they have Wilks formulas and stuff, because it's going to be harder to lift more when you weigh less. So you have to consider that too. Like, even losing a little bit of strength, absolute strength, could still be an increase in relative strength. So you have to factor that in. You also have to factor in your levers change. So like, especially with squatting, trying to like bounce off the bottom out of the hole, that's a lot easier to do. If you got a little gut kind of giving you a little bit of bounce at the bottom, that starts to go away. The levers start to change a little bit. It makes it more difficult. But training doesn't change a whole lot based on whether you're cutting or not cutting. It's pretty much going to be the same kind of thing. So the biggest thing is to make sure you're keeping, you know, your calories as high as you can while seeing reasonable results, less than 1%. You know, making sure that you're prioritizing other aspects of recovery, like sleep, stress control, hydration, all those types of things. But yeah, I mean, it shouldn't change too much whether you're on a cut or not. So hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, man, this is absolutely true for almost everybody. And this is something that I try to relay as much as possible whenever anybody's stopping a cut and going into a reverse. We have a tendency to feel like, okay, now it's going to get easy. I get to eat more food. It's going to be, I don't have to be so aggressive. It's going to be less cardio. The process is going to be easier now. And I go, okay, like I'm not trying to like make you panic or anything, but almost everybody finds that the initial stages of the reverse diet are the hardest part of the process by far, and it's not even close. You're going to be hungrier than you were on a cut. You might be more tired, more agitated, things like this. It's kind of like the body is, for a lack of a better way to explain it, it's kind of like the body sees getting more calories after all this time of lower calories, and it's just like, yes, give me more, and it's trying to do everything it can to get you to give you more. You know what I mean? So it's like, bring it on. So your hormones are still out of whack from the dieting, and it's trying to get you to eat more. Your body has a body fat set point. It wants you to get back to that initial set point that you are now below. It's going to start signaling to the body to eat more, and it's really challenging. And not only is there the physiological reasons for it to be more challenging, but also psychologically too. You don't have the focus now of trying to lose weight. So sometimes it's going to be easier to deal with hunger if you know it's for losing body fat, right? You're like, okay, like I'm hungry, but I'm seeing results, so I can deal with it. But now it's, well, I'm hungry and I'm not even going to be losing body fat. In fact, now the focus, your mind focus is now eat more food, and whatever your mind focuses on, you know, you're going to be more inclined to start, I guess for lack of a better way to explain it, focus on it more. So now you're more focused on food and wanting to get rid of the hunger. It's almost going to make you hungrier, and it can be a real challenge. So I recommend viewing the early stages of the reverse diet after a cut as basically an extension of the cutting phase itself, and just stay really diligent and understand that in time it will get better. And for the people who get the really kind of crazy results in a reverse diet, the people who either maintain or even lose and get their calories sky high and all that type of stuff, it's always the people who still follow the plan diligently, because now you can keep increasing calories, your hormones and metabolism start to kick up, you start to feel better, you start to recover better, you start to get a bit more energetic, you probably move around a little bit more throughout the day because your energy is coming back, and some pretty crazy things can happen in those instances. But if you have a lot of struggles with overeating and ups and downs, if you think about it, we typically make increases based on how much you're losing or gaining or maintaining. And if you keep gaining weight because you keep overeating, it makes it really difficult to keep bumping up the calories, because you don't want to keep increasing weight, and it just turns into this vicious cycle where you basically get nowhere. You just keep gaining weight, but you're not really getting calories higher. In that case, you probably do want to increase your calories just to make it more realistic to hit them, but it just makes it a big challenge. But if you keep hitting those numbers and keep making those increases over time, calories get up and get sky high, and you're doing a really good job of maintaining your weight because of it. So not an easy thing to do. You got to be prepared for it and know that it's normal. There's nothing wrong with you, but it's definitely a challenge, without question. I really believe that it's by far the hardest part of the process, and it's something that nobody talks about. All right, what else we got? Absolutely, walking plays a major role in fat loss, and it's the form of cardio that I use the most myself when going through a cut, and I've been kind of trying to encourage clients as well to pick it up too, especially if you're someone who's just sedentary in general and don't see a lot of activity throughout your day. If you have a desk job where you sit in front of a computer all day, you're only taking a couple thousand steps a day, you're not getting much activity, that's going to make it much more difficult. So picking up that walking can really help quite a bit. Is it a magical solution? No, but the benefits of it are that it just doesn't wear you down. You know, I think a big mistake a lot of people make is they just look for the most intense exercise they can possibly do to burn the most calories they can in the shortest amount of time possible. And while yes, more intense forms of exercise are going to burn more calories in a shorter period of time, it also makes it really difficult to recover and beats you up, runs you into the ground. A lot of times you start moving around less throughout the day just because you are so exhausted. You feel miserable. It just makes it more difficult to stick to your diet, and it just can turn into a terrible thing. And I hate to see people continue to just run themselves into the ground and then eventually give up because they can't do it, when it's like you could just be more, you know, you could take it easier. The main drawback of walking is it takes more time. You have to commit to that time to be able to burn more calories through walking, but there's a lot of pros to it too. There's pros and cons to everything, right? So you have to find a balance that works best for you. But without question, getting steps up can help significantly. So yeah. Oop, I gotta fix this. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this to work a little bit better. Ooh, that didn't work. Sorry, give me 1 second. I want to make this fit. Go a little bit smaller. Oops, didn't want to do that. Well, I guess it's gonna have to be close enough. Let's see if I got it all. Is there longevity in there? Okay, so the question is, what are your thoughts on protein intake and decreased longevity? Do you think it would be possible to maintain a good physique with recommended protein intake for longevity? 0.36 grams per pound of body weight. So I don't know of any evidence to suggest that. I am certainly open to it. So if you have some research that you can point me to, please leave like an actual comment on this or different video so I can take a look at it. I'm not aware of high protein decreasing longevity, especially if you consider the positive benefits that protein has on maintaining a lower body fat. I think the thing that in my personal non-medical professional opinion is that overweight, obese, having too much body fat is going to be the biggest driver of negative health and therefore lower longevity than anything. And if having higher protein is going to keep your body fat lower, then to me that's going to make a bigger impact than any potential negatives. But I'm not aware. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just not aware off the top of my head that that does exist, and if so, it's probably some sort of correlation study, which correlation doesn't necessarily mean causation. It's one of those things we always have to take a look at. But I'm open. I'm never here to say that the way I think of things is the way or the right way, or right or wrong way. I'm always open to changing my mind based on more significant evidence coming out, and that's why I do have a lot of the opinions that I have now. Like a lot of the things that I say now, I didn't used to believe until I learned and grew, and I'm always continuing to learn. So why I gotta get this is driving me nuts. I gotta get this fixed. Let's go this way. Here we go. That's better. Maybe I just need to wrong way. That's better. Okay, how do you get over the fear of going out to eat? I mean, sure, the calories are listed, but who is measuring out the portions back in the kitchen, especially sauces? You could miss the mark far. So I think the biggest thing is just you have to understand that it's not going to be accurate, but you also have to accept that it doesn't need to be accurate. It doesn't need to be 100% perfect. Your weight maintenance has more of a range than an exact number, and you're never going to know for sure. And like you said, even if the nutrition is listed, there's nobody back there measuring it out. Like I promise you, the cooks aren't back there measuring out your butter and pouring your olive oil into a tablespoon and measuring out your rice or fries or whatever. You know what I mean? They're just throwing it together, trying to make it good and throw it out there. So it's like, the biggest thing is to just not fall into, well, I don't know, so what's the point? And then going crazy. And that's what happens for so many people is they go, well, there was no nutrition available, or I didn't think it was going to be accurate, so screw it. I might as well also eat this or have whatever I want, and then also have a couple extra beers and have some dessert and go home and open up a pack of Oreos. You know what I mean? That's what gets you in trouble. If you just give it some sort of value and just be okay with it and know that it may be a little bit off, but you're never going to know. For all you know, it's perfectly on. It's probably not, but you don't know. It might be above, it might be below, and different times are going to be different. Sometimes it's going to be a little over, sometimes it's going to be a little under, and that's okay. It's not about being perfect. It doesn't have to be. And I think the only way to get over that fear, honestly, is to just, you got to do it. You got to get out there and do it. Like any fear you have, the only way, in my opinion, to get over any fear in life, any fear, is to do the thing you're afraid of. Once you do it, you're no longer afraid of it anymore. There was a great quote by Greg Plitt that I used to have saved that I loved, that it was something along the lines of like, fear is a parasite and you are the host, and the fear is like feeding off you, the host, and the only way to make that fear go away is to stop feeding it. And it's kind of like, you just gotta like people are always asking like, well, how do you get over the fear? Like, how do you make yourself stop fearing it? And it's like, it's not one of those things where you're gonna think yourself out of the fear. It's just, okay, like, we just got to go and we got to do it. And the beautiful thing about tackling your fears is that it makes it easier to do it more and more and more, and you realize that everything that you want out of life is on the other side of fear, and it just feels so good. Like, there's no better feeling in the world than doing something that you were afraid to do but doing it anyways, and that builds pride, that builds confidence, and it's just like it just can snowball in a good way when you start doing it. And at this point, like in this point of my life now, in a strange kind of a way, like whenever struggles come my way and whenever I'm really afraid to do something, I kind of get excited about it because I know what that's going to mean by getting through it and doing it anyways. I mean, that's the best feeling. And hopefully that was helpful and didn't go on too much of a rant there. During a diet break, should I stop cardio and just do weight training? I don't recommend stopping it completely. I would reduce it. So usually around like 30 to 50% less. So if you're doing 150 minutes a week, maybe do around 75, 90, 100, somewhere in there, just to keep it going, but not stop it completely. Yeah, definitely keep doing your normal weight training during a break, but just reduce it and not completely stop it, in my opinion. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's just no life to live. To be so afraid to go out and eat and enjoy, and like I've talked about before, sustainability. I mean, if you have to completely avoid all social situations and friends and family to not live your life because you're afraid of possibly gaining a small amount of weight from one meal, which is not going to happen. But it's just that's a terrible trade-off, in my opinion. Like, everyone's got their own unique balances and priorities, but it's just not necessary. You know what I mean? Like, I know tons of people, myself included, who go out to eat frequently and still can maintain a lower body fat. It's just not. It's kind of the all or nothing mindset, you know. So yeah, I mean, that's what I recommend. So when you're going out to eat, look online, see if nutrition's available. And if nutrition's available, use that. If nutrition is not available, then see if there's a similar item from a restaurant that does have nutrition and just use that. And even if like you have no clue what it is, just give it a best guess. Even if it's a wild guess. You know, I think it's 1,200 calories for this meal. Might be 800, might be 1,600. You don't know, but at least you're giving it a value and not falling into, well, I don't know, so what's the point, and then going nuts. I mean, that's the worst thing that you can possibly do. And another strategy you can take too is, instead of worrying too much about like macros, just try to get close to calories that day. Maybe try to get close to calories and protein, and you're gonna be close enough. You know, there's ways to be more flexible without, just, okay, I gotta hit every macro to right down to the gram. You know what I mean? And that's something that I do more frequently now when I track. Is I don't worry too much about macros. I look more at total calories and protein, and I don't really worry too much about if carbs and fats are higher or lower any given day, especially on like higher days. Because I would just rather have that flexibility than going out to eat and being like, well, I have extra calories, but it needs to be carbs, and this stuff is all high fat, so I can't have it. I know, like, if you're in a competition prep or something, sure, but just for general weight loss, regular life stuff, it's overkill. Then stay fat? I don't understand the question. How often should we drop the weight on bar? Sometimes it becomes a bit difficult to understand whether I'm tired for real or it's a mindset thing, since we are on a cut and we can drop the weights. So make sure you're taking proper deloads. I recommend that around every 6 weeks-ish, you know, between 4 and 8 weeks usually, depending on how your body typically responds. So if you're not taking any actual deloads to recover, then that's part of it. But I mean, you drop the weight if you can't do the weight, right? Or you just do less reps. So I mean, if you normally would do 100 pounds for 3 sets of 8, and this day you try it and you can only get to like 6 reps doing 100 pounds, well, then it's not there that day, and then you can just drop it a little bit, or just do a little bit less reps, and just make sure you're challenging yourself and pushing yourself in the gym. But you can't just like progressively overload all the time. I think the biggest thing is keeping your training intensity up during a cutting phase, and not getting overly focused on the numbers, especially like, I know we always hear progressive overload and everything, but it's much easier to maintain muscle than it is to build muscle. And we'll talk in a little bit about how to make sure you're maintaining muscle. I believe that was a question that I got. So I'll get into those details here in a little bit as I get caught up. I think decreased protein intake leads to longevity stems from the anti-aging gurus, which speak to mTOR protein promoting cancer cell production. Okay, possibly. You know, I'm not really sure. Again, correlation and causation, not necessarily the same thing. It's kind of like, I think I talked about this in a couple of videos ago, where there was this kind of like fear-mongering article about artificial sweeteners. And the title of the thing was something along the lines of, large study, and it was like thousands of people, large studies show or prove that artificial sweeteners make you fat or cause obesity or something like that, or is linked to obesity. And the thing that the study was, they found that people who were obese consumed more diet sodas than people who weren't obese. And then their conclusion from that was, well, see, diet soda makes you fat. And it's like, well, hold on a second. Is that possible? Probably. I highly doubt it. There's no freaking calories in it. But I think it's much more likely that the reason obese people are drinking more diet sodas than non-obese people is because they're obese and they want to lose weight, so they drink diet sodas. Don't you think that's more logical than diet soda making you fat? Like, it's easy to spin science to a certain narrative you have, and I have to be careful with that myself. Like, it can be easy to do. You don't want to use science to like prove your point. You want to use science to find the most logical, most likely answer when you see patterns over time emerging. Again, I can't really speak intelligently about this particular topic, but we do need to be careful about it. And again, just living a healthy lifestyle, keeping it a normal body fat is, in my opinion, the best way, however you want to get there. Can we eat a calorie deficit through NEAT only? Suppose your maintenance calories is 2,000, and to lose fat at a moderate rate, we need to eat, suppose 1,700 calories. So can we create deficit through NEAT only? It's possible. It's just very difficult to do. It takes a lot more time and effort to burn calories, and your body adapts a lot faster to like more activity, especially through cardio. And it's like, you can take away 300 calories a day so much easier than trying to burn it. Plus, you don't really know how much you're burning. The activity trackers are not accurate. They've been shown to be up to like 85% off. You know, they're extremely inaccurate. So they're good for knowing like if I'm being more active or not, but they're not great for predicting how many calories you're actually burning. And I just find it's much more difficult to create a deficit through activity than it is through dropping calories. I find for most people, some sort of combination of the two is best. More than just trying to increase activity, but it's possible, especially if you've been very sedentary and now you start picking up weight training, you start building muscle, which is the greatest thing you can possibly do for body composition, and you start to get some of that recomp, get a little bit more activity through other sources. It's possible. It's much more difficult to do, and at some point you're probably going to have to reduce calories, because once you do eventually plateau, like you just have to keep doing more and more and more activity, and it's just going to get to the point where it's like it's just going to be like insane amounts of activity to try to stay there, you know. So when I give targets for macros, I usually recommend around 1 gram per pound of body weight for protein. And if you have a lot of weight to lose, then just use like a goal weight or lean body mass equation. You know, just the point is to prioritize protein is by far the most important one, in my opinion. And then after that, we want to set fat, and that's between 20 and 30% of your calories from fat is what I typically recommend. Somewhere in the middle is good for most people. And then the rest of your calories go through carbs. And that's an easy way to do it. But at the end of the day, it's calories and protein that matter the most. So if you really like more fat or prefer more fat or find that you feel better on more fat or whatever else, if you want to go above that 30%, that's fine. You know, whatever you can stick to. I don't recommend eating less than 20% of your calories from fat, because we need to make sure we have enough for, you know, hormones, digestion, nutrient uptake, you know, these types of things. And so we want to make sure we don't go too low fat. Now, it kind of depends on how many calories you're eating too. But yeah, I mean, that's a good spot for most people. But if you prefer more, then that's not necessarily a problem. And sometimes I might make a video about this pretty soon. I think for more general population type of people, not like athletes, but just people who want to get in better shape and live a healthier lifestyle, I'm starting to find that doing a calorie target and a protein target and not worrying about carbs and fats is a really good way to do things. It's not quite as accurate, but if it's more sustainable and helps you stay on plan better, then that's going to be much better. And you know, I still like to keep an eye on those things. So like we don't give carb and fat targets, but we still pay attention to how many carbs and fats, just so I can keep an eye on things and make sure that like fat's not getting too low, or make sure like if you're really drained and just have no energy and we're looking at things and it's like you're barely eating any carbs, then okay, maybe we need to start giving some targets. But as a whole, if things are going fine, then that's really what matters the most by far. If I'm doing reverse dieting, how do you know when you reached your caloric floor? I assume what you mean is that the most amount of calories that you consume for your body, that's kind of like your genetic limit, so to speak, where you won't just gain a lot of fat. I do have a video on this, like when to. There's a couple. One's called. Hold on. Let's do this. One is called When to End Reverse Diet. There it is. So this one, When to End Your Reverse Diet, is a good one. And then there's another one. Don't worry, I'll talk about this too, but if you want to watch these later, when I'm available. Reverse Diet. And then also, this one will be a little bit more specific to what you're asking, and that is, how high do calories need to get? Might also be helpful. Calories, how high reverse dieting. But anyway, so some things to watch for are like hunger signals, you know, how you're feeling. Are you feeling like really recovered? You're not food focused anymore. Not only are you not food focused and not that hungry, but you probably are going to find that you're actually very full and having a hard time getting your calories in because of your hunger hormones and stuff being in a better place. And you know, it's an amount of food that you feel satisfied with, that you know, you feel like you can be good and balanced and flexible with, but also high enough that you can make the drops necessary to be able to lose fat again, if the goal is to go back into a cut and lose more later. If the goal is just to live kind of a balanced lifestyle and just kind of roughly maintain, then it's just, okay, how many calories do you feel happy on and that you feel balanced and flexible that you can maintain your weight on? And there's no right or wrong answer to that, as long as you're feeling okay. So those are some of the signs to look for. I don't give like, okay, you should be 15 times your body weight or whatever else. Like, you can do these things, but it's just way too specific to the individual, and it can be so different for everybody. So yeah. Do you find in the industry many clients with eating disorders or body dysmorphia? Any general advice? Absolutely. I think it's extremely normal, and it's beyond my expertise to give advice on eating disorders and that type of stuff. So if you do struggle with that, my advice is to seek out someone who specializes in that, and seek out a good qualified therapist to help. Because I need to stay in my lane. Like, do I have some like little tips and stuff that can help with people sometimes? Sure, but I think it's important to stay in your lane. You know what I mean? Controversial topic. How do you as a female go about losing some muscle mass along with fat? I know it's metabolically useful, but there is some bulk I'd like to lose. Well, you just, if you want to lose more muscle, then you just have to train a lot less. Like if you just stop training, you're going to lose muscle. So as long as you're in a calorie deficit, you can lose muscle and fat, you know, especially if you take a faster pace. Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like if you could lower protein, which that might help you lose a little bit of muscle, but it's not going to help you with losing body fat. Same thing with like, okay, reducing training is going to help you lose some muscle, but that's also going to work against you for losing body fat. So it's a difficult thing. And I think sometimes our perception isn't reality too. Maybe, and I'm not saying this is true for you, but maybe you look at yourself a way that most people wouldn't, or that you wouldn't towards anybody else. But it's your own personal unique balance. Like there's no need that says you have to have more muscle. There is a lot of evidence that metabolism slowdowns as we age are mostly through losses of lean body mass. So there's also that to consider as well. But it's kind of like the whole, well, I don't want to get too bulky, or you know, I'm afraid of gaining too much muscle, which is just so difficult to do. Very few people will ever even get to that position. It sounds like you might feel like you're there, but it's like, well, it's not something that is logical to be afraid of, because if you're afraid of gaining too much muscle, well, if you do gain too much muscle, then just stop training and you'll lose it. You know, it's not like you just build muscle and it's just there forever. No, like it's definitely a use it or lose it thing. So, I mean, that would be the way to lose it. Love it. Yeah. Yeah, so you want to make sure you have enough calories to then be able to make the adjustments necessary to not only see the initial fat loss, which I do have another video. I'm not going to post it, but it's basically how to adjust macros for fat loss. It takes you through how many calories to reduce to start and the different types of adjustments that you make along the way. So you need to make sure you have enough room to be able to make the adjustments through the initial adjustment down, and then as you plateau, more room to make adjustments through that too. So it's a balancing act for sure. I think some can be beneficial. There's one with core that I use myself, actually. Let me come over here. Core Nutritionals. Called Load. And I find it helpful. It's more for, you don't want to take a glucose disposal agent if you're not eating a higher amount of carbs in that meal. Yeah, like actually, like literally, if you took Load without eating, you would go hyperglycemic. You know what I mean? So you want to make sure. Typically, I think they recommend on this one that you have at least 80 grams of carbs in a meal to get the most of it, to make sure that you're shuttling the glucose into muscles, preferably over fat, and it can be helpful for higher calorie meals. So like I know you personally do those really high calorie days. If you have a really huge meal, taking some of that with that can be potentially helpful. And if you want Core Load, use code Colin and get a discount on it. Let's see. By the way, if you are interested in following my progress as I go through my cut, let me get rid of me. How do I do that? I'm gonna figure this out. Nope, wrong one. There it is. So I don't think I'm going to be doing live videos, or not live videos, excuse me, videos about my cutting phase that I'm going through right now, but I will probably every couple of weeks post on Instagram kind of how things are going, you know, what types of things I'm doing and the progress that I'm making. So if you are interested in watching my progress and watching me talk about it, make sure you are following my Instagram, Colin DeWaay, and I will be posting here. You know, this one I thought was interesting. So if you've been following me for a while, especially on Instagram, you know that I had to go for like 20 something weeks, what does it say? 21 weeks. Where I either couldn't train for several of those weeks, or had to be very, very light, like could barely do anything, super light, not even close to failure training. And then I was able now for the last 19 weeks since then to get back into normal training, and I didn't really change anything. And since the time when I couldn't train to now, 5 pounds heavier, but my waist was almost identical, like within 1/8 of an inch of each other. And it's why I say, okay, we can't get too focused on that scale. That's not what I wanted. Whatever. Yeah, you can't get too focused on the scale because you know what? Muscle is not free. There's so many people who struggle with this and say, I want to build muscle, I want to go into a gaining phase, but I don't really want to gain any weight. And it's like, well, hold on. Like, again, muscle has weight. Like, you can't add muscle to your frame without adding weight to your frame. Like, do some people have some recomp sometimes where you lose a little bit of body fat and gain muscle, which keeps you around the same weight? Sure. But unless you're, if you're someone who's more experienced in training, that's just very unlikely to happen. And if you want to go through a building phase, that scale number, to optimally build number, that scale number is going to go up. It's part of the process. Will there be some body fat along the way? Probably, but you're also going to be building muscle and improving metabolism and setting yourself up. And so it's just always a good thing to remember. All right, back to the questions. Thank you. I really appreciate it, Joshua. If you ever have any questions, just hit me up. I have a whole playlist on my channel too called Reverse Dieting for Metabolism or something like that. It's got like 10 or 12 videos or something that probably would cover pretty much anything you could ever want to know about reverse dieting. So if you want more resources, go to that playlist. Speaking of, yeah, absolutely. Go to here. Let's go back over here. So let's go. I'm gonna get more food in this in time, I promise. I can do this. Let's see. Playlists. Reverse dieting to improve metabolism. So it kind of goes, I try to have it in somewhat of an order that makes sense. So this first one, this how to reverse diet and why it works, that one kind of covers not only like how to go through increasing your calories based on how much weight you're gaining and losing and all that type of stuff, how long you should reverse diet, and you know, considering your past, but it also explains like the reason why you need to reverse diet, the reason why your metabolism slows down as you diet and things like that. So that one's kind of like the overall, like, kind of covers it all thing, but also my camera presence was a little different back then, but it's a good place to start and then just go through. But if you're only looking to find out how many calories you should increase as you go through the process, then this shorter video, Reverse Dieting, how fast should you increase your calories, is probably going to give you everything you need to know. I've got some, like, if you really want to do everything you can to minimize weight gain, you know, check out this one. You know, like I said, when to end reverse dieting, all that type of stuff. This one covers like why some people lose weight and why you probably shouldn't expect it yourself, but it is possible. All that type of stuff. So that's where I would start. But as always, if you have questions, let me know. Or if you really want to do the best you possibly can, then of course my online coaching is the way to go, right? So yeah, my one spiel I'll do for the live. If you are interested in online coaching, getting not only the know-how to how to go through the process and learn more, but get out of your own head and have someone who can be objective with you, and have someone that's supporting you and holding you accountable. Head to my website, ColinDeWaayTraining.com, head to coaching, come down here to sign up now. It does come with a 30-day money-back guarantee, meaning if you, within the first 30 days, you're like, you know what, this just isn't for me. Like, I thought I was gonna be different. It just isn't my jam. You can get your money back. There's literally zero risk whatsoever. And if you are interested, then click on that. It'll bring you to a questionnaire. Fill out the questionnaire if it ever loads. Fill it all out, send it to me, and then I will shoot a video going over your questionnaire, talking about things, giving you my thoughts, and I will shoot that in an email to you. If you don't see an email if you don't see an email from me within 24 hours of filling out the application, that means it went to your spam folder, almost guaranteed. So check your junk/spam folder, and it'll be in there. So that's my spiel. Back to the Q&A. Any suggestions for people with PCOS and easily gain weight, weighing 265, now gained 35 since the start of pandemic? So I do have experience dealing with PCOS. Obviously, I'm not a specialist in that. And I find typically people with PCOS, they just tend to have to be more aggressive. You know, going to have to be lower calorie, higher cardio. I do recommend, again, this is not medical advice, I find people with PCOS do better with more frequent diet breaks and trying to keep their metabolism in as good a spot as possible, so not dieting too harshly for too long. And I've got someone right now actually who just can't eat a lot of calories. We reversed and reversed and reversed and reversed, and she gained plenty of weight, and we still can only get her up to about 1,500 calories. And that's pretty low, but sometimes it's just how it is. Like, that's why I say we can't go buy calculators, because it's all this genetics and diet history all have a huge factor. But and high and low calories too are relative to the individual. But for her, what we've been doing is doing the 2 week on, 2 week off approach, and it's been working great. Like, we've done one cut in the past and it went okay. She lost pretty well, but we had to just, it dragged on forever, and it was super slow, and it was a real grind. So this time we're trying to be more cautious with it and try to keep her metabolism and hormones in as good a spot as possible. And the 2 week on, 2 week off approach has been working fantastic. Like, I think we're through like 3 or 4 cycles now, and it's like each time we diet, she loses a few pounds, and then basically maintains through the diet break, and then loses a few pounds, and then maintains, and we just keep cycling back and forth between the same diet break calories and cutting calories, and it's been working great. That doesn't mean it'll always work that well for everybody all the time, but that's a good recommendation. There are, let me think. Yeah, I don't want to get into that side of things, but yeah, be really patient, take plenty of breaks, and if you may find that while it seems like you have to get pretty aggressive, that's not terribly uncommon in people with PCOS, from what I've found. And remember too, like, you don't want to get too tied to that scale, because if you have like cysts popping and stuff like that, and you're holding a lot of water, we got to be careful with that. So make sure you're taking pictures and measurements and everything. How important is it to get a proper mind-muscle connection as a beginner? It's very difficult to get a proper mind-muscle connection, especially for the lats. So, it's definitely very helpful, and it's something that will come with experience. You're right. Like, in the beginning stages as a beginner, it's going to be hard to have that mind-muscle connection because you haven't built the motor patterns yet. And, some people get so down on themselves when they don't have really great form, or don't feel like they're doing the movements great right away. And it's like, well, why would you even expect to? Like, you've never done it before. Why would you be good? Why would you get under a bar for the first time in your entire life and squat and think you're just going to be flawless? Like, it's just irrational. Like, you don't pick up a guitar for the first time in your entire life and just start wailing on it and just play beautiful music. It takes time. You have to learn. You have to get better. So you don't want to like judge yourself or beat yourself up. I know I'm going off tangent a little bit, but it's just a common thing that I see. And as you do it more, you literally have a motor learning pattern that happens inside the body that helps you get more efficient with the movement. A lot of strength isn't muscle size, it's neural. It's learning the movements better. You may have the same complete total amount of muscle that you had before, but now you can squat way more because you're just better at the movement. So it's something that will improve over time. And yeah, you just really need to focus on using the muscles that you're trying to use for that movement. So like with the lat pull down, instead of like, pulling with your like arms, you really think about almost like squeezing a pencil between your lats and your back, keeping your scapulas retracted and down, and just really focusing on just using those lats to kind of like come into your body like this. It's hard to explain. It's something that you'll get better over time, though. I don't know if that helped at all, but I tried. 13 to 1700. Should I also keep my protein higher? I'm 140. I need to go back here. I'm missing something. Oh. Can you clarify? I guess I'm not quite sure what you're asking. I think I'm missing something from before. Your old message, where is it? I'm not seeing it. Go back to a cut. It's gone. Sorry. I'm not quite sure. So basically, I think you're asking, should you go to 1,300 calories from 1,700 calories if that's your maintenance? That would probably be a decent spot, yeah. But just depends. Thank you. Very welcome. Thank you, Kim. Can the coaching be structured around how I'm currently doing my reverse, like with the cheat meal, or will I have to go to a more traditional reverse diet? You know what, it can, so there's no one set way of the way that my coaching works, and this is something that I always try to like let people know. Like, if there's ever anything about the coaching that you don't like or the style that you find unsustainable, it's not a do this and if it doesn't work then it's not for you, or if you don't like it it's not for you. There's a million ways to do this thing, and a big part of the coaching is just the consultation part of things, in learning how to find things that are more sustainable for you, learning about your preferences and what you like and what you don't like, and how your body responds to different protocols and what you like, and how to learn how to be able to back off when it is necessary, when life calls for it, and when to be able to dial it in, and how to do so you don't fall into the all or nothing mindset, and understanding that there are ways to be more or less flexible, and there's tons of ways to do it. Like, there's practically an infinite amount of ways to go about this process. There's so many ways to do it, and there's no one size fits all approach. And if there's a certain way that you like to do things, then, and that helps you sustain it, I'm not going to take that away. I'm not going to force you into like my personal, like, this is the way it needs to be done. Like, that's just foolish. So yes, long story short, 100% it can be structured differently to the way you like to do things. The only thing I would do is encourage you not to call it a cheat. I would encourage you to call it something else, like whether it's an untracked meal or whatever else, just because of the negative implications that thinking about cheating can have. It makes you feel like you're doing something wrong, and can mentally put you in a bad place. I mean, if it doesn't bother you and you like to call it a cheat and it doesn't have negative implications, I guess I don't care that much. But if it does, then we want to be cautious with that. Spoke of the 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. How many calories did you increase? Well, I don't want to say that because it's specific to that person. It's very different depending on, you know, your starting calories, your how your body responds, you know, your current structure. But a lot of times it's around maybe 40 to 60% increase in carbs, maybe you're around 5 to 10 grams of fat. Really just kind of depends. There's so many different ways to do it, but it's basically getting around to rough maintenance calories, not trying to be perfect with it. And even if it's not, it's just, even if it's still technically a little bit of a deficit, the fact that you're getting more is still going to be beneficial. So I can't say, or I could say how many she got, but I don't think it would be wise to do so. So I'm going to send you to a video that will be way more helpful than anything I could say here. And that is how to diet break. And this video will walk you through basically everything. Because like I said, it just depends so much, and there's no perfect like formula that you could just use on everybody. It doesn't exist. It's something that you're gonna have to play around with a bit on time, over time, and see how your body responds. But that'll give you a good starting point at least. I did look above. I wasn't seeing it, so I'm sorry, I missed it. So if you don't want to follow up, then I won't follow up. Like, I'm trying to be nice here. Try one more time. There's a lot of comments in here. I don't know if it got deleted or what, but I'm not seeing it, so I apologize. Is there any guidance you could give as far as trying to dial in what amount of fat intake is right for me? And thanks, you're very welcome. So play around with it. You see if you feel better on a little bit higher, a little bit lower. Try going on the higher side of the range, the 20 to 30%. See if you feel better on the 30% or so, and then try doing a little bit lower fat and higher carb and see how you feel. And perhaps you'll find that you just do way better on one approach than the other. Everything we do here is kind of a trial and error kind of a thing, and the more you do it, the more you stay consistent with things, you can you'll just find over time like how your body tends to respond and how you feel better. I think for most people it really doesn't matter much, honestly. Like if calories and protein are equated, I don't think most people find much difference, higher or lower carb, but some people do. I think sometimes people are deathly afraid of carbs, so they try to convince themselves that they feel better on higher fat when they don't necessarily. They just don't want to eat carbs because they're scared, which I don't want people to be scared of carbs because they're so helpful and beneficial. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everyone. Thank you. Yeah, it's a struggle. I get very frustrated with YouTube, but I also don't like. I understand it too. I mean, it's very difficult, and there's probably things I'm doing wrong that make me not show up as well. I know it's very driven by how much people are watching, how long they're watching, and the everything they do. But it's kind of one of those things, like if you want to get somewhere with something, you just have to keep going and keep learning and keep growing. It's no different than your fitness goals. Like, I can't tell you the amount of times that I have felt like giving up on YouTube because it felt like nobody was watching. It feels like it's not working. I'm not growing. It's too slow. It's not worth the effort. But it's like that's not going to make it better. Giving up isn't going to improve that. It's not going to change it. So we just keep going, keep going. I'm all about outlasting. I may not outwork everybody, but I will outlast almost everybody because it's like I just refuse to give up when things aren't going well, and it's a struggle. I look at other people like. You're going to be hard pressed to find people who have almost 800 videos over a 7-year period who don't have 100,000 plus subscribers. You know what I mean? But hey, I mean, that's just how it goes. And I just keep trying to learn and improve. And I try not to just say YouTube hates me because there's reasons that I'm probably not growing at a rate that I would like to, but that's how it be sometimes. So, but I appreciate the compliments, and I appreciate all the likes and comments and shares that I can get to try to help. Thank you, Tammy. I really do appreciate it. All right, surgery in 2 weeks. I've been told to eat maintenance macros. I'm nervous going from 1,700 calories. Should I keep protein high? Definitely keep protein high. And if you're gonna be much less active, which obviously you will with your surgery, which best of luck, I hope it goes well. I usually would recommend dropping around 10 to 20% of your calories. So if we went on the higher side, and we said 1,700 times 0.8, so yeah, 1,400 calories would probably be around rough maintenance. Obviously, I would rather you get as many as you can. It's just hard to predict. You know, like you're probably gonna be pretty dang inactive though, so that might be around rough. And then protein is super helpful for many reasons, including usually when you see, obviously, again, not medical advice, but usually when you see instructions from surgeries or anything like that where you're trying to recover, it usually even specifically says keep protein high because it's going to help rebuild. So definitely would recommend the higher protein. But if you have specific instructions from your doctor, then obviously follow those. Thank you. All right, I got some questions. I'll wait for more to show up. I've got some questions that I asked for up front, so let me go to those. You blow this up a little bit. All right, when dieting, what key points do you emphasize with clients, training, and day-to-day in hopes of maintaining the most lean tissue as the weight comes off? Do you recommend lower rep range strength training for the duration of the cut, as well as only incline walking for cardio? So the biggest things when it comes to trying to maintain as much muscle as possible throughout a cut, and keep in mind that you're probably going to lose some. Like we can minimize it as much as possible, but chances are you're going to lose at least a little bit, and you're probably not really going to know anyways. But to make sure that you're losing as little as possible, you want to make sure you keep your protein high, getting around 1 gram per pound. If you have a lot of weight to lose, around a goal weight, or a little bit higher if you can realistically stick to that plan. So high protein is huge. Also, making sure that you're not losing weight too fast is probably as important, if not more important, than the protein. You want to make sure you're not losing more than about 1% of your body weight on average per week to maintain as much muscle as possible. The faster you lose weight, the more likely it is to lose muscle. The slower you lose weight, the less likely you are to lose muscle. That's why when I did such a long prep, when I did my actual prep a couple years ago with Paul, again, I want to clarify, I'm not a competitor. It's just something I did one time. But we went really slow because I just don't have a large muscle base, like in bodybuilding standards anyways, physique standards. I don't have a lot of muscle. I knew that I was going to be out muscled by plenty of people. So my only thought was, okay, like I need to get as lean as I can to try to just outshred everybody as much as possible to give myself a fighting chance. And we took a very, very slow pace to make sure that I didn't lose muscle as much as possible and retained as much as I could. And I think I dieted for like 26 weeks, something like that, to lose like 20 pounds, something like that. Somewhere in that range. So yeah, the slower pace is definitely a key part, and then just keeping your training intensity up. So you don't want to dial back on your training or anything. Like you want to keep your frequency up, and you don't necessarily need to change rep ranges. Now you may find as you get leaner, and as I said previously, your levers start to change and things like that. You may find that higher reps might be a little bit easier for you to do, just because your chances of injury get higher the leaner you get, and the heavier you're going also increases chances of injury, and you may find yourself more fatigued, so a little bit higher rep might help with that side of things. But it's not a physiological thing. It's not, well, high reps to lose weight kind of a thing, like you hear a lot. Oh, you should do high reps to lose weight and you should do low reps to build. No, that's not accurate. It's more about your training volume, your total training volume. So hopefully that was helpful, at least a little bit. And incline walking for cardio is great. I think that's a great source. Your more lower intensity cardios, they just don't run you down into the ground as much. So if you're trying to train really hard and low calories and doing intense cardio, it's really hard to recover from all that. So that's why the less intense cardio could be helpful for losing less muscle, just because you're not beating yourself down so much. All right, on a reverse diet, should the goal be to get cardio to 0 and your baseline steps to like 5,000 a day, if our focus is purely being in the best situation to start a cut in 6 months to a year's time? So I don't recommend going all the way down to 0 cardio. I mean, if you want to, you can make the argument that the less cardio you're doing before you start your cut, the better off you're going to be when you do cut, because now you have more room to make adjustments as the body does plateau. If your baseline is 0 and then you increase your cardio from there, you've got plenty of room to add more cardio as you see stalling. Whereas if you started with like 4 hours of cardio, like now that's your baseline and you have to go above and beyond that to see better results. But I recommend keeping in at least like 30 to 60 minutes of cardio, just if for no other reason, just the general health benefits to come with it. I've done the no cardio thing, and I just like, I remember one day I was walking around the house on the phone with somebody, and all of a sudden I was like sat down and I was like having a hard time holding the conversation because I was like breathing heavy. I'm like, okay, maybe this no cardio thing wasn't a great idea. So I recommend it for that, and it'll also help get your calories up a little bit more. It helps a bit with like work capacity in the gym for your training and stuff like that. So I would keep at least 30 to 60 minutes in, but yeah, I mean, and then as far as the steps, it's kind of that balancing act, like between living a healthier lifestyle and then also leaving room to make more adjustments down the road. Like you say 5,000 a day, for a lot of people that would be a huge increase in steps. I know for you that would be a huge reduction from where you're currently at. So it's all relative, but yeah, you could definitely dial it back some, and there is no right or wrong answer. It's unique to each person and their own personal wants and preferences and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, the less you're doing, the more options you're gonna have. But it sounds like you're probably gonna have a ton of calories to work with anyways, so you don't necessarily have to go super low with your activity. Let's see what we got here. What do you think about bro diets or crash diets? I can damage my metabolism. So this is off. That's going to bother me. Well, we're just gonna have to deal with it. So yes, well, you can't damage your metabolism. Let me be clear about that. That's a misrepresentation of what happens. Your metabolism suppresses, your metabolism changes and slows down, but damage makes it sound like it's irrecoverable and that you've like structurally done something wrong. Now, I should preface that by saying I did talk to Dr. Joe Klumzeski, Dr. K, Dr. Joe was what most people call him. You've probably seen him on Paul Revella's channel if you watch him. And he said that people who are on like less than 500 calories a day for a very, very long time could actually damage the cell, and that could have actual like damage implications to it. So I guess it is possible, it's just unlikely. Usually it's not damage, it's just a suppression that can be undone with a good reverse diet or getting calories back up in general. But the crash diets are absolutely going to tank your metabolism for sure. You're going to sacrifice a lot of lean body mass. You're going to suppress your metabolism significantly. Your hormones are going to get all jacked up. Your hunger hormones are going to just be completely destroyed, and you're going to be super hungry. You're never going to feel full. You'll be crazy food focused. You have a high chance of feeling run to the ground, extreme fatigue, extreme like irritation, extreme cold, a lot of just really negative things can happen, like big time losses of strength. It's just not a good way to do things. The probability of you gaining the weight back after a crash diet is like 99%. Like it's extremely high, and it's just not going to be a sustainable plan for you. And you need to look at it as a lifestyle and be patient and take your time. Otherwise, you're really setting yourself up for a real challenge. And the more times you do it and the more aggressive you do it, the worse it's going to get. And that's why you don't want a yo-yo diet, because it just creates so many problems. So that's my spiel on that. All right, I think I got a couple more here. On a reverse diet, things like excess carbs, constipation will influence our body weight. So how do we rightly judge our reverse diet status? Well, that's no different than in a cutting phase. Like, no matter what, things like carbs and being backed up and hormones and sodium intake and training inflammation, how much food is still digesting in your stomach, how many fluids you drank, like being super sore, all these things influence your weight. And it's not just on a reverse diet, it's always maintenance, reverse, cutting, that's always the case. So that's why I recommend taking an average for the week. So you weigh yourself every day and then take an average, and you don't look at the individual days, you look at the average. Even that is not the be all end all. You're still going to pay attention to pictures. This is a step that so many people skip that just kills them. You need to take pictures from the front, from the side, from the back, showing as much as possible from the same distance, same lighting, repeat as much as possible, because it's going to be so much easier to compare and look at that to see differences. Pay attention to measurements, pay attention to how your clothes are fitting. All these things are going to be signs. So we don't only want to look at weight regardless of anything. It's not the be all end all. But taking an average for the week is going to help with that, because you're always going to have fluctuations, but the average takes away those fluctuations and gives you a more accurate representation of what things actually look like. Let me see. Nicholas, I know I addressed one of these. Well, both of them, I think. I got to get rid of myself here. So I know I sent you to a video, but I'll briefly touch on it, I think. So please take us through how you would bring your cardio down to 0 minutes and steps down from 3 hours a week to 115,000 steps a week. So again, there's like the video that you probably watched. You know, it really depends on a number of different things, including like if you do want to get all the way down to 0, or how fast you want to do it, or a bigger thing is, do you want to increase your calories faster, or do you want to decrease your cardio faster? That's a big thing when reverse dieting. You're going to bring calories up, bring cardio down. If it's more important to you to have more time and get the cardio down faster, then you're going to make smaller decreases in calorie, or smaller increases in calories and bigger decreases in cardio. If you would rather have more food than less cardio, you're going to make bigger increases in calories and smaller decreases in cardio. So, I mean, if you want to do mostly food and you don't care about doing the extra cardio for a while, I mean, you could do just like 10, 20 minutes a week until it gets down to where you want it to be. If you want to make bigger decreases, you could do a half hour, maybe even 45 minutes to an hour. It depends on how your body is responding too, and how well things are going. So if you're making bigger decreases and it's not going well, you might want to dial that back. Or if you're being really slow with things and it's going extremely well, you can probably pick up the pace. So there's not like a certain set of numbers that like you should follow this exactly. It always really depends on not only your preferences, but also how your body is responding, which is why I always say be consistent, monitor, adjust. And then we talk about that stuff. So let's see. I think I got a couple more questions here. Tips for women in perimenopause. Seems I'm not doing anything different and gaining belly fat out of nowhere. So, in my opinion, what's most likely here is that because of the menopause, you're feeling much more tired and run down, and therefore being less active. Are there some hormonal changes that could make some differences? Sure, certainly. But I think for the most part, it usually comes down to now you're just being less active, and it's something that we don't always consider. So it's like maybe you're still eating the same amount of calories and you know, training the same amount of times and doing the same amount of exercise and everything, but now because you're very tired from this, now you don't move around as much throughout the day, and you're kind of laying around more and feeling tired and probably not sleeping as well. You know, maybe going through hot flashes that are waking you up in the middle of the night, and stress is higher, and these things can absolutely impact things. And not only can they impact the amount of fat gained and lost, even with other things equated, but it also just makes you more tired, and again, therefore makes you move around less because you're trying to preserve energy because you just don't have it in you. So that's one thing to check for. If you have an activity tracker, check that and see if you're being more or less active during this time, and that could be part of it. And if all things are equated, all things are equal, then you can dial your calories back a little bit to try to stabilize. But chances are there's probably a reason for it. We just don't know exactly what it is at this point. But there's probably something in your day-to-day life that's contributing more than just, well, now I have menopause and now I'm gaining a bunch of fat. But there are hormonal changes that obviously that happen that can impact things. And if that's happening, then you want to adjust accordingly. So hopefully that was helpful. And it does add another challenge. Like I definitely find, you know, I've got some people that I work with for a long time who weren't in it, and then going into it, and it definitely became more of a challenge. But again, a lot of it came down to less activity, and then also the hormonal changes that happen can impact things like cravings and things like that, where now all of a sudden you're being a little bit less diligent with things, overeating more than you were before, and that can impact things more as well. So that's something to watch out for. During a reverse diet, is it possible, if you're still in the initial deficit, to be reversing too slowly and then have your metabolism adapt down? Let me read that again. During a reverse diet, is it possible, if you're still in an initial deficit, to be reversing too slowly and then have your metabolism adapt down? I don't think your metabolism will adapt down, but you're delaying getting out of the deficit and improving yourself physiologically from a hormonal aspect and things like that. You know, if you're increasing calories and your metabolism is increasing at a faster pace than the amount of calories you're increasing, then that can cause some of that. But I wouldn't call it a slowdown. You know, and if you are finding that, then, you know, just take a faster pace. But yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about it. All right, got a couple more coming in. If anybody else has anything else, please ask now, or forever hold your peace. I have a question about dieting. I was on a diet break at 1,700 calories. I lost 0.3 pounds that week. 2 weeks after, I have accidentally ate 1,635 instead of the target at 1,400. I gained 1 pound that week. Could you help me understand why that happened for me? So your body's just going to fluctuate. There's not necessarily anything to it because there could be a lot of reasons. Maybe you were on your period, you're hormonal. Maybe you had more sodium than usual. Maybe your training picked up and you're more sore from it. Maybe you ate a lot more hard to digest foods, and you know, your GI was stressed and bloated and things like that. And you know, maybe you're not sleeping as well this week. Maybe you're more stressed out. Like, there's so many reasons, so we don't want to get too caught up in a pound up or down in any given day or week even, and not get too caught up in it. But there's a lot of reasons why it can happen. But as far as, let's see, you lost 0.3 and then ate 1635 instead of target at 1400. Yeah, I mean, it could be glycogen related, it could be water weight related. It's nothing to get too worried about. You know, your body's not always going to respond the exact same way to any given protocol or higher or lower calories on any given week. From your experience, how much of a role does cortisol play and improve on a reverse diet? Do you think that that in itself can reduce weight despite increase of calories? So cortisol makes a real difference, and there is kind of like a fat loss blunting effect of cardio, or excuse me, of cortisol. And yeah, I mean, it can play a role for sure. And then again, this is where sleep and stress control, excuse me, I'm having a hard time here. Sleep and stress control can make a difference, and you know, it can definitely factor in. And I do recommend like Core Hard, cold call and core nutritionals. I really recommend Core Hard in the later stages of a cut or early stages of a reverse diet, and that does help bring cortisol down. And I've seen people too who are like completely stuck, low calories, just feeling run down, and they just couldn't do it anymore. They started taking Core Hard and boom, saw a big drop in the scale, and all of a sudden felt way better, started sleeping better, recovering better. And it's probably because cortisol went down. At a minimum, I would recommend ashwagandha to help. Is it a complete be all end all? No, but it can definitely be helpful. And but yeah. And from a day by day, week by week basis, fluctuations in cortisol can absolutely impact the scale weight. Let's see. Going back to the fat intake question, what indicators are there to watch for? I'm thinking bathroom comfort, libido, but there are others. I am 155 male, around 60 grams of fat daily. That's not a bad amount for a diet. And you're pretty dang lean too. So yeah, no, 60 isn't. I recommend, I don't like to go below about 40 to 50 grams of fat for men and 30 to 40 grams of fat for women. Of course, there's always variables, and there's always, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know, it's escaping me, but there's always reasons why that might be different on a case-by-case basis, especially in the short term. But 60 is not very, like, it's not like crazy low or something to be concerned about in my mind. And then yeah, like a lot of times people will get constipated and having a hard time, and it can be because of low fat, because fat does aid in digestion. And sometimes like people would be terrified and they'd be really struggling and having a hard time, and I say, you know what, just go and have a cheeseburger and fries. I'm like, do it up. And then they do that, and then boom, things start moving, and they feel like 1,000% better, and the weight on the scale drops because they're not holding on to so much anymore, and they're not as bloated, things like that. So that's definitely things to look for. So digestion, yes, libido, just general like extreme fatigue and mood, things like that are things to watch for. And that can just be associated with low calories and just being lean too. Like 10% is getting pretty lean. As you get leaner, the body's going to fight you more and more and more. And you know, it can sometimes you just need a diet break, and that'll help, but at a certain point it's just going to be a grind, you know. For your recommendation of 0.2 to 0.5% weight gain on a reverse diet suggested, is it okay for me to go up half a pound to a pound a week? I know it's hard to say just on weight, but is that not too aggressive? I think we did this in the last one, didn't we? And we took your weight and did the average, and it was somewhere around 0.5 to a pound. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I mean, I think that's well within range. No, sodium intake will not impact fat loss. This whole like low sodium thing is a big misunderstanding. And yeah, I mean, a lot of times if you reduce your sodium, you'll see a drop on the scale, but it's because now you're holding less water. If your body kind of gets used to a certain amount of sodium, and if you go above that amount that it's used to, you're going to hold a little extra water until you eventually pee it out. Or if you go below that, you're not going to be holding in as much water, so you'll see a drop on the scale. So people will reduce their sodium significantly, see a big drop on the scale, and go, oh look, sodium's terrible, you need to keep it away. But it was just a temporary drop in water weight. And then the problem is sodium is an electrolyte, and if you are too low sodium, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna have decreased performance and energy, and your muscles will feel less full, and you'll probably feel more tired and run down into the ground. So you need to have enough sodium. But the thing is, your body adjusts. So like if you eat a lot of sodium every single day and you're not used to it, well, if you just keep doing it, your body will adjust to that certain amount of sodium, and you will be fine. But it won't impact actual fat loss. That's done through a calorie deficit, which sodium doesn't have an impact on. Now, I will say there's a couple scenarios in which you do want to monitor sodium intake. One being if you have some sort of medical condition that requires it, like hypertension or something like that. And then the other is there's a small percentage of people who have a sodium sensitivity, which basically means that your body doesn't excrete sodium properly. Your kidneys don't excrete sodium properly, and it can't handle more sodium the way that a normal body would. And if that's you, then you definitely need to be more cautious with sodium. But if you have that, you'd probably know. It's a small percentage, it's like maybe 5 to 10%, I believe, but it's not like crazy rare, but it's not common either. But no, you don't have to worry about fat loss from sodium, and I would err on the side of more sodium than not enough, because you're not going to feel great with not enough sodium. I used to say cheat meal, but now that is something guilty. Now I call it a treat meal. I love that. That's what I'm saying. Like cheat, nothing good is associated with cheat. Like if you cheat on your partner, if you cheat on a test, if you cheat your friend out of money, you know, all these kinds of things. That's all bad. That's all stuff that you should feel guilty about. If you don't, there's probably something wrong with you. But it's not good. Like so if you feel like cheating is doing something wrong and something to feel guilty about, and then you call it a cheat meal, well, of course you're gonna feel bad about it. You're gonna feel like you did something wrong, and you're gonna feel guilty. And there's no reason to feel guilty that you decided to have a little something else. And I like that cheat meal or treat meal. Aim for 30 grams of fat each week, so some days are going to dip lower than 30 so I can eat more fat on weekends. Is that fine, or should I keep it to 30 grams every day to be on the safe side? You know, I think as long as your average is working out above 30, you're probably fine, but it's getting low. Like I would encourage to try to keep it up daily for the most part. I wouldn't freak out of like, oh, one day you eat 25 or whatever, but yeah, I mean, I don't have any like evidence to point to say, no, you should never go below it. It's just kind of my personal intuition. But I think for the most part, it's that average that matters the most. So if you're having pretty high fat days on treat days, which you probably are, because most treats usually are a lot of fat. So you're probably good. The biggest thing is like, how do you feel? Like if you're feeling good, you're not having any negative side effects, then there's really not much to worry about. Got from 1500 to 1840 in 16 weeks before I put it on pounds more rapidly. Should I expect a similar caloric ceiling this time around? Not necessarily, especially if you weigh less now. And remember, the more weight you lose, the less calories that your body is going to need to maintain its weight. So your kind of like genetic baseline potential for any given weight is going to be different. So if you keep losing weight, you're not going to get you in theory won't get as many calories the next time you reverse up. Now that's not always going to be the case, and there's a lot of factors too, including like how active you are throughout the day and all these different things, and sometimes crazy things just happen. But I wouldn't expect it just to go the exact same way. So sometimes things rhyme, but it doesn't always necessarily repeat. Very welcome. I know you said you could get disheartened from YouTube, but just know men like you and Paul are seriously helped me in my fitness journey. I love that. Thank you. Because of your work, I've lost 50 pounds. That's awesome. Pure body fat, and my kids and wife are proud, and I'm setting a good example for them. You make a huge difference. Thank you. Like that, these comments, like these just completely make my day / week. So thank you so much for taking time to say that. And I love this comment about setting a good example for your kids. I think that's something that more people should hang on to. I frequently talk about having a strong why to keep you going, because if you don't have a strong why, it's too easy to give up when things get hard. And I do mean when, not if, when. And if your reason that you want to lose fat is like, well, I just kind of don't want to feel so fat, or it'd be nice to lose a little bit of weight, like that might be enough to get you started, but it's very unlikely to be enough to keep you going when things gets really hard. And if you have a really strong why, like setting a good example for your children so they don't have go through the same struggles, that can keep you going. And if you hang on to stuff like that, that's a real great motivator. Obviously we can't rely on motivation, but it sure helps when we have it. So that's awesome. And thank you so much for the kind words. I keep hoping one day I'll see a huge, like all of a sudden one day I'll get some video that will take off and things will change, but so far not even close. But you never know. All we can do is keep swinging, right? I mean, you're never failing if you keep going. And even if it doesn't happen, even if we never blow up, that's okay. I'll still keep going, and especially with comments like that helps motivate me and keep me going. Thank you. Yes, I say that, like, I keep saying that. I say that all the time, but I guess I do. And the thing that I love about fitness and like strength training is there's so much correlation between what we do with this stuff and just everything in life. Like they really go hand in hand. And I like to say that if you don't give up on the weights, then you won't give up on life when things get hard. And that was like one of the things that may seem kind of corny. When I was a power lifter many years ago now, I struggled to get to a certain strength level with my deadlift. My squat just took off. I'm kind of built for squatting, but my anatomy, my levers are pretty crappy for deadlifting, so it's a much more difficult lift for me. I guess that sounds like an excuse and probably is, but it's true. But I got up to a 500-pound deadlift relatively quickly. Which was great. And then I completely stalled out, and I just couldn't get to 515 was like the next big goal that I had. And I couldn't get there, and I struggled, and I failed that lift time and time again over the course of almost, it was a year, between like a year and a half and 2 years of failing that damn lift before I finally got it. And it was like one of the most like freaking like proud moments of my life. And that probably sounds ridiculous, but it wasn't that 515 pounds means I'm a strong person, or that it's an amazing goal, or that I'm a better person because of it. It was all the emotions of failing that so many times, but never giving up on it and saying, no, like I'm gonna get this damn lift no matter how long it takes, no matter how hard I try, no matter how many times I fail, I'm gonna keep going until I get this damn lift. Once I finally got it, like I was like overcome. Like I was so freaking proud. And that shit carries over into your life. If you learn not to give up on things like that in the gym, that's going to happen in other areas of your life, in your job, in your home life, other hobbies, anything else you have. That stuff makes a big difference. And you have to learn how to not give up through simple things, like things that aren't working well in the gym or with your fitness goals or whatever else. And that stuff carries over and makes such an impact. Like the stuff that happens to you on the outside throughout this process is so pale in comparison to the stuff that happens on the inside if you learn to keep going and not give up when things get hard. It's never the end result or the end goal that makes you proud. It's all the crap you went through to get to that, and being proud that you didn't give up, and that even though you had all these hard negative circumstances that kept piling up, but you didn't let it get to you and make you quit, and you just kept going. That's the stuff that really like just overwhelmingly changes you in a positive way. And that's something to always hang on to and remember when you're in your struggles and things are very difficult and you feel like giving up and it feels like the whole universe is against you. Remember, the growth comes through struggle. You cannot grow and get stronger without struggle. Like, it can't. If everything was easy all the time, it wouldn't positively change you. It wouldn't positively impact you. We always look for easy all the time, but easy isn't what you're ever proud of. You don't, like, name one thing in your life that you got easy that you're proud of and that helped grow you and helped build your confidence. Like, it probably doesn't exist. But you think about all the things that you're super proud of in life, it was all stuff that was really hard. So we got to stop looking at hard as a bad thing. It's a good thing. I know that seems kind of backwards, and I was just thinking, I wonder if I can pull this up. I see we got a question. I will get to it, but I want to do this for myself if nobody else, because I haven't looked at this in a long time. I can probably just look up myself. Colin DeWaay 515. That was one of the times I failed it. DeWaay proud. Yeah, here we go. I even called it one of my proudest moments. Let me see. I wonder if I can turn on the sound. I know there's a way to do that. I'm probably gonna have to figure it out a different day. Boy, that's an ugly looking deadlift, but I was I was young. So anyway, this day I was doing some max testing, and 515 was on the docket, and I thought I had it, and I lost the grip like at like here. So in deadlifting, you have to, when you lock out, or in powerlifting, when you're deadlifting, you have to lock it out fully and then hang on to the weight until they tell you to drop it. Now, this wasn't actually in a competition, but you always want to practice as competition would be. And I was like right there, like right at lockout, and I lost it, and I got so mad. So anyways, this was that attempt of just missing it. And usually once you miss a lift, like, you're not going to get it again because you're going to be so exhausted. But I had like this like fury inside of me that day that I was like, I'm not leaving until I get this damn lift. It's been too long. So I was like, I got it. Oh, don't have it. Damn it. And then gave it one more try, and when I hit that, like, I can't explain the feeling. Like, it was just amazing. Like, accomplishing things that you fail on over and over again is just the best feeling ever. And you always have to remind yourself that. You'll see my reaction when I'm done. I hope this doesn't sound conceited. But definitely don't mean it that way. RIP headphones. Good thing I wasn't in Planet Fitness. But I couldn't control myself. Like, I was so freaking pumped up. Like, there was just no way I could contain myself. Okay, year and a half. It was a year and a half. Okay, anyway, I think I got another couple questions here. Can you explain about flexible dieting? Many people are telling me that I can't track every single thing I eat my whole life just because I want to fit my macros. Yeah, I mean, so flexible dieting doesn't really have a definition in my mind. I know a lot of people define flexible dieting as tracking your macros and eating what you want within those macros, but that's a form of flexible dieting, but it's not the way to do it. It's a good way to initially learn more about being flexible, because now you can see, okay, as long as I hit my numbers and I have whatever I want, I can still keep seeing results and everything's great. And that teaches you a ton, and it starts teaching you more about what's in the food you eat and helps you learn to be more intuitive. But then over time, you know, depending on your personality and your goals and everything else, it's not uncommon to want to start eating in a more intuitive approach, and then you can start learning to incorporate some things like untracked meals and then untracked days, and maybe eventually get to a point where you take away all tracking. Just again, it depends on so much. But yeah, I mean, there's a difference between tracking macros and feeling like you have to hit every macro down to the gram. And that's where, like, if you're talking about, if you feel like you can't, if you feel like you have to hit every single macro down to the exact gram every single day, there's nothing flexible about that at all. Like, sure, you can be flexible with your food choices, but you're not being flexible by being that hyper focused. Now, some people like it. Some people love strict macro tracking, and it makes them happy, and it's sustainable. And if that's you, that's great. Like, there's no one size fits all sustainable approach for everyone in the world. but you also have to check yourself and ask yourself, do you really like it, or are you just terrified of not doing it, and therefore you convince yourself that you like it? You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. To me, flexible dieting means just being flexible with your diet. And there's going to be some times you're going to be more flexible and less flexible. There's going to be some times where you're going to track diligently, and there's going to be times where you more loosely track, and there's going to be times where you don't track at all. And sometimes you will be tracking, but you'll have a day of, you know, going to a party or whatever and not getting caught up on it, but hopefully not like binging your face off because you're off plan. And yeah, I mean, can you track everything for the rest of your life? Maybe, maybe not, probably not. It's probably not the best for most people, but that's not to mean that there's a problem if that's what you do. But yeah, I mean, it's up to your own balance, and it changes over time, and as do your goals and everything else. So I don't know if that really answered your question too much, but there's so many ways to do it. And if you've been stuck on tracking macros, a good way is what I talked about earlier in this video, and that is switch from tracking macros to hitting calories and protein, and do it like within a range. So like, okay, try to stay within like 50 calories of your calorie range by the end of the week on average, and don't worry about carbs and fats. And that's a way to be more flexible with things while also staying on top of things, and that might be more helpful. It's huge. It's like that's one of the best things you could possibly teach your children, is the ability to not give up when things get hard, and to learn that it feels so good to do those things. My son is now 13 years old, and it seems like he's forgotten everything that I've ever talked to him about ever in my entire life. And I now know absolutely nothing, and I haven't taught him anything in his entire life. but when he was younger, I remember I had a moment where he was playing this video game on the Wii U, and he got to like this final, or it wasn't the Wii U, it was a regular Wii. Not that it's important, but he got to this final level. It was like the last level before beating the game, and he kept losing. He kept dying over and over and over again. And he was like, I give up. It's too hard. I can't do it. And I was like, okay, here's a teaching opportunity. And I said, no, I think you should keep going. Like, I think you've got this. And I was trying to get him to keep going until he eventually beat it. Because if you do something long enough, you're eventually going to get there. Like, the longer you do something, and the more you fail at it, the more you learn, and the better you get at it. And eventually, I mean, failure is the best teaching tool there is in the world. We don't want to beat ourselves up or feel bad about ourselves if we fail at something, and we just learn from it and grow and get better. And it's getting you that much closer. So I somehow convinced him to keep playing the game, and he kept doing it, and then he finally beat it, and he just jumped up for joy, and he was just like going nuts, and he was so happy, the biggest smile you ever seen on his face. And I was like, yes, he sees now how good it feels to accomplish something that was hard, but you didn't give up on. And like, my hope was, okay, like maybe that's going to carry over into life. And there was even a day that we went to the beach with some friends, and it was at Siesta Key, which has a really long beach. You have to walk a long ways. And I think at the time he might have been like 8 or something. And he was pulling the cooler behind on the wheels, and it was getting really hard for him, and he was having a difficult time getting it through the sand. And I was like, do you want to do that for you? He's like, no. And then we got almost there, and my buddy Brandon goes, do you want me to get that for you? And he goes, no, we don't quit. And I'm just like, yes. Now he says I've never ever had those conversations with him ever before, but we can only hope that it clicks at some point in life. But it's just so important, because I mean, that is what keeps people down all the time. What keeps people from reaching their goals and struggling in life. It's always giving up. It's giving up when things are hard, and it's just such a valuable lesson to learn, not only for your kids but for yourself. You never regret not giving up, but you always regret doing it. And that's something that I always talk to myself. Like, that's my big thing of talking out loud is, if I'm struggling with something and having a hard time, feeling like giving up, I always talk to myself out loud, because in your head it's all emotion. Out loud is logic. Say, okay, will you regret this? And if I will regret it, then I don't do it, or vice versa. You know what I mean? And if you always just be honest with yourself when you say, will you regret this? It'll keep you doing the right thing. Hope I'm getting really preachy today, but I'm very passionate about that stuff, much more so than I am just getting people in shape. It's the best feeling. I had a similar one with my squat, 520 squat that I did. And I, at this point, couldn't even do 300 pounds at this point, but it felt good at the time. Okay. I can't ever increase weight on back squat, but I do okay with deadlift. Any tips on getting a better squat? I do have a video that's called, my material used to be much more powerlifting focused a long time ago. And I have a video called how to squat properly, and that will probably be helpful. And it's very unique to each person because of our different anatomy. So like for me, the reason that I have a much better squat than deadlift is because I have a very long torso and short femurs. So that allows me, if you think about like the body, it allows me to be more upright and therefore stay in a more optimal position for squatting, and it makes it an easier lift for me. With deadlifting, my long torso with the combination of having short arms means that that bar has to come so far off the floor to be able to complete the movement that it makes it a very difficult lift for me. So that's why at that time, my squat PR was actually higher than my deadlift PR, which is very, very, very rare. But it's because of that. So if you see people who have like really strong deadlifts, usually the weight only has to come off the floor like that much. Like they've got these really super long arms and they spread their feet way apart, so the bar just barely has to come off the floor at all. And they just go bloop and lock it out. Not that there isn't a lot more involved than just that, but it definitely is a factor. Well, it must be a 13-year-old thing to know everything. 17, 6 feet tall. During the COVID period, I lost 68 pounds through keto dieting, dropped from 228 to 160 with any exercise. Then I began school. I was able to continue the diet, continued for a while, and then I started to binge eat, and then crash dieting so as to keep the weight off, but now I'm unable to keep a diet up for... Sorry, I'm having a hard time here. A diet for up to a day without cheating. What do you think I should do? I think it's time to switch focus and start a reverse diet. You've been dieting for a very long time. Your body is signaling to you that it's over it, and it's time to get your hormones and metabolism back into a better place. Very difficult part of the process. I talked about that earlier, but if you just keep trying to force it, it's probably just going to get worse and worse and worse. And you've done fantastic. No matter what, you're a huge success at this point, and now it's time to go, okay, it's time to shift focus. You got your whole life ahead of you. Don't force it to a certain weight and say, okay, like now we switch, and the time to cut it will come again, but now it's time to focus on more things like enjoying more food and flexibility and performance and things like that, and come back at a later date. Especially as young as you are, you don't want to develop a yo-yo dieting pattern that people spend decades doing and just trashing themselves. So you don't want to be the person who ends up being 50, 60 years old who has done this every single year for 30, 40 years, and they get to the point where it's literally almost impossible to lose weight, and they need to go like freaking forever with a reverse, and then they'll still have a hard time losing weight because of it. Like it can be done, but it's gonna be really challenging. And you're in a position now where you've just started doing this. The first time you lose will always be the easiest. It will never be easier than the first time you lose, and you got to think big picture now. And I wish you the best. And I got tons of videos on how to do this. I love that, Paul. So, yeah, somebody asked me once how I handle the nutrition side of thing with my child, and basically what I told him is I don't force anything. I just try to lead by example and hope that he picks up on it. I don't want to have him feeling like anything's bad. I don't want to like restrict him, even if I feel like he's eating like too much junk, so to speak. I don't want to tell him that he shouldn't do that, because it's just going to create a negative relationship with food and feel like, well, I can't have that. And so much of what I hear with people, clients of mine who have struggled, they picked it up when they were young. They learned it from their parents. They learned it from watching their mom or dad, constantly say that they can't have that certain food, or that it's bad for them, or that they shouldn't have it, or that they pick themselves apart and talk about how fat they are and all these things. Like, kids pick up on that stuff, and they grow up to be like their parents a lot of the time, even though they don't. It seems like they don't listen to us. They do develop a lot of our habits that we show, whether intentional or not. So you got to be really careful around your children. And to me, it's like, okay, like I'm just going to show that, okay, you can have some things, but also try to show that I also eat cleaner a lot of the time too, and hopefully that he picks up on that. And Whether that works or not, I don't know. I don't claim to be an expert on kids' nutrition or mental health, but that's the way I do it, right or wrong or indifferent. Yeah, for sure, for sure. I said it before, but I'm going to say it again. Like, there's nothing more valuable that you can teach somebody, including yourself, than the power of not giving up. That's why I say outlast. Outworking is great, but if you outlast, it'll eventually come together. So people ask about the coaching business now. Well, it's way oversaturated. It's too hard to get into right now. People said that to me when I started even 6 years ago. So it's like there may be everybody and their cousins are an online coach right now. Without question, like there's tons of people doing it, but what it's not saturated with is people who work hard and actually care and are good at what they do. You know what I mean? That is hard to come by. Actually, way too hard to come by. There's an unlimited supply of crappy coaches. But there's most people who say, oh, it looks like an easy way to make money are rudely awakened to how that's not the case. And then when they haven't blown up within 6 months, give up. You know what I mean? Like, no, try basically making nothing for 3 years, but keeping on going. Eventually it comes together if you keep going. It depends on the person, how many calories you should eat. 1,200 calories for a person who's 300 pounds and a person who's 120 pounds are very different, especially considering everything, genetics, dieting history, activity levels. Like I just did a video recently about how many calories you should eat. So it's like literally like just a couple videos ago. So if you want, check that one out and it'll tell you like how many calories you should eat. Or I really recommend the one that I keep talking about, the how to adjust macros for fat loss. I think that's the best video to bring you through the process. It's a longer video, but it's got everything. Like my videos get longer because I don't want to leave stuff out. I want to make sure I'm giving as much detail as possible. So if you go to YouTube, we'll see where I pop up for myself. How to adjust macros for fat loss. Yeah, there we go. All right, I'll post this in here. Yeah, 18 minutes. And trust me, that was, I remember doing that one. I think it was initially like 25 minutes or something when I first did the initial edit. And I'm like, okay, I gotta like cut some stuff out. How to adjust macros. What do you advise if you can squat more than you can grip? I'm assuming you mean deadlift because there's no grip issues with squat. I am new and 70 pounds too easy for my legs but too heavy for my grip. My shoulders have limited range of motion, so a back squat isn't accessible. Yeah, so I'm assuming you're talking about deadlift. And if you can't hold onto the bar, which is inevitable at some point because you're going to be able to, as strength goes up, your grip isn't going to be able to handle it anymore. So there's progressions you can make, and there's different ways you can do it. You can use chalk if your gym will allow it. A lot of gyms don't allow chalk, unfortunately. You can go to if you're doing a double overhand grip, you can go to over under like this, and that way that'll give you a much better grip. And then if you're having a hard time with that too, then you can go to straps. I actually really recommend Versa grips over just regular lifting straps. Let me look them up. Yeah, I think I have the pros. So these are fantastic, and I use them for like pulling movements and everything. I just love them because then they just wrap around your wrist, and then you just take this little flap here and just put it underneath the bar and then grab the other side, and it just stays in. Whereas with a regular lifting strap, you have to get down and you have to like tighten it up and twist it, and then if like it's not in the perfect spot, you have to like let it go and try to readjust. It's just a pain. Obviously the lifting straps are much cheaper. You can probably get a pair of lifting straps for like 10 bucks, maybe 20 bucks. And these Versa grips are 70 bucks, but man, they are worth every penny to me. And then you can go double overhand too, which that way you don't have some imbalances by always going underhand sometimes, which can happen. And I got my VersaGrips in 2015, and I'm still using them. So that's 6 years, and they're still holding up. Yes, no bad foods. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with slow progress. And you're very welcome. I'm glad I've been able to help. Yeah, I mean, and that, like, up and down, like losing weight, reverse dieting, like there's nothing wrong with being with stuff being slow, especially, you know, in a cutting phase when we feel like it should be happening faster. A lot of times it's unrealistic what we expect anyways, but even then, like, slow progress is still progress, and some pretty incredible changes can happen by small changes that happen over a longer period of time lead to extremely big changes. And one thing that I like to talk about is, I think Sophie Lee was the first person I heard this from, and it's called the paper towel effect. I got some pictures here I can show you. So, hold on. So if you think about a paper towel, right, oops, wrong one, a roll of paper towels, all right? So you look at a roll of paper towels, and this is a full roll. If you were to take one sheet off of this roll, and then look at it side by side, you would see no difference whatsoever. It would look exactly the same. There'd be no difference. And then if you take another sheet off and look at it, look at the one that was one off versus two off, it's gonna look the same. Take another one off, the same. Take another one off, the same. Take another one off, the same. But then you go 20 sheets later, and then you go back and look and you go, oh crap, I'm making a big difference. And this is why progress pictures are so important on a week by week basis. Even looking at progress pictures on a week by week basis, you're probably not going to see much of any change. But when you look back and you see, like, if it feels like things aren't working, and then I do this all the time, oh, things aren't working, that's a struggle, I'm not seeing any results, and they're just really struggling, and I go, okay, let's go back to the first pictures they took, put a side by side, here you go. Holy crap. You know what I mean? That's a real motivator. That helps you feel better. So the slow progress that feels like it's nothing in the moment, that adds up to extremely large progress when you just keep going over time, and it keeps adding up. So never be discouraged by slow progress. Something else I wanted to show you here, but now it's escaping me. Well, what are you gonna do? 2 kettlebells to squat, but those are a problem too. All right. Are you just holding it by your side, I guess? Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. You could still use straps. And that, yeah, like the over-under isn't gonna help at that point. You would basically need straps. Or maybe chalk, or eventually switch to a bar. The first few days of quitting the binge mentality so you can stabilize your calories can be some of the hardest, but once your body knows how it will be, knows it will feed consistently, it will get easier. Yeah, I mean, everything. Like the longer you do something, the easier it gets, and the more you start to change. All right. I'll give it another minute here. Any other questions? 2 hours. I guess my concerns about doing it weekly and not having any questions because of it have now been erased. So I will definitely keep doing these weekly for the most part. I mean, obviously there'll be probably an occasional week here and there if I'm out of town or whatever they want to do them, but I want to keep them up. Let me know too, like, if you like these shorter videos I'm doing, they're kind of like just clips of these lives where I just put them up as just a quick topic. I kind of like it because it's a way for me to get out more content, and because like the good videos that I do, the ones that are more detailed, like those take a long time. Like they probably take on average like 10 hours to put those together. So it's hard to do a crap load of content. So rather than just having one live and one regular video, that would allow me to do like 4 or 5 videos in a week by having those smaller ones. But if No, if everyone thinks they're stupid and a waste of time, then I don't want to hurt chances. I don't want to make things worse. But if you like them, that might be a way that I can get out some more content. And they're shorter videos too, because I know I can be long-winded. Yeah, give the straps a try. Anything else? I could remember what I wanted to do. There was something. I know what I can do. I'm gonna try to find my old pictures from the start of my prep to the end and how I lost less than a pound a week on average by far. And actually, of the 26 weeks, I think that I lost less than a pound like 17 times. And even a handful of those weeks, I didn't lose any weight or even gained weight. But those small things add up to big changes. Let me see here. Weight training. You too, Kyra, thanks. Thanks, Irfan. Oh, by the way, in case you didn't see it, I did shoot a response to your application that you filled out. But I checked this morning and it looked like it hadn't been viewed. It probably went to your spam or junk folder. So if you haven't seen an email from me, check your junk folder or spam folder, and it's probably in there, and then shoot me an email back if you haven't seen it. If you have seen it and you're not interested, that's okay. Oh, where am I going here? Okay, let's go physique. Cool. All right. Well, everyone's probably gone at this point, but I'm gonna keep looking for this in case you want to see my comparison. I need to look back and see. I don't remember when I started my cut. Actually, I'm gonna bring up that. I'm gonna bring up something here. I want to show you the spreadsheet that I made on that shows the changes. Oh, I'm having a hard time. Drive. Prep macros. Here we go. You did. Oh, okay. Yeah, it happened during my live. Okay, so sorry about that, Irfan. Yeah, I hadn't seen it yet because it literally came back during my live. So perfect. I will check that out and reply after this live is done. So here was the prep macros that I did. And if we take a look here, so it was, oh, it's 23, not 26. Okay, so 23 weeks, I went from, I must have stopped it because I got down to 160 pounds. So it was longer than that. So it says ended 9/10. I think my prep ended basically a month later. So yeah, probably 27 weeks or so. But you can see here on a weight change week by week. So 0.7 actually gained 0.1. Let me make this a little bigger for you. So 0.7, gain 0.1, 0.9, 1.3, gain 0.1, 1.8, 1.1, 0.4, 0.7, 0.5, 1.1, gain 0.3, 1.8, 1.5, 0.1, 0.9, 0.5, 0.6, gain 0.1, 2.1, 0.6, 0.6, 0.2. So you can see how a lot of these were like almost nothing or even gaining weight. A lot of them were just fractions of a pound. And then some bigger ones, you know, a couple of decent ones, but a lot of pretty small changes. But over the course of 27 weeks, those little bit of changes, those tiny little changes, week by week by week by week, those added up to significant changes. So if we look, so I started 4-2. Let me find 4-2. And then so small changes can add up to big changes. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where it's so hard in the moment to stay on it. You know, seeing okay, I did everything I was supposed to do and I gained weight. What the hell? It's gonna happen. Sometimes you're gonna see big drops. Sometimes you're gonna see small drops. Sometimes you won't drop at all. Sometimes you're gonna see a gain. It's gonna happen, but you just gotta keep going. You're very welcome. Thank you. Totally understand why, but it's been 2 hours and 4 minutes, so I understand wanting to go, and I'm pretty much out of questions. It sounds like for the most part, anyways. I'm just kind of rambling by myself at this point. Perfect. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong at all. And you're going to continue to learn and grow and get better too, you know, for sure. So, all right, I'm going to call it. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, if you're interested in online coaching, head to my website, fill out an application. I will get back to you. Check your spam folder if you haven't heard back from me within 24 hours. And other than that, have a fantastic weekend, and we'll probably do this again next week. All right? Take care, guys.